Hello, my name is Alicia McDaniel. I am the co-founder of Virtual Gallery Online, and today I am with Jessica S. Oler, who is exhibiting work currently in the project space. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for being here today with us, or with me.
Having me.
Yeah, and Sam gives her best. She had to go to work today, but she wishes she could have been here to say hi. But yeah, you're not too far, so maybe we can connect sometime.
Absolutely, I would love that.
So just kind of diving into the questions. We can start with the first one. So I'm really interested in this concept you talk about in your artist statement that you refer to as the unprotected Black female flesh. And I was kind of interested in when you first incorporated this concept into your work and how it came to be.
Sure. I actually still remember the moment, not the day, but the moment. I was in my last year in graduate school. I was working on some project. I don't remember what project it was. But I had this kind of aha moment, like, oh, that's what it feels like. That's what it is. Unprotected Black female flesh. In that moment, I was specifically thinking about the reality of living with a chronic illness, because I happen to, as a Black woman, and what what encompasses that experience, unprotected Black female flesh. So that's where the idea originated for me, and it's absolutely still relevant to my work. And I've found that it continues to expand to other conversations outside of patient narrative and disease development. So that's the origins of that center space in my
Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
course.
And this next question's a little more, I guess, technical. I don't know what the word is right now. I'm losing it. So I noticed that the majority of your work is in the realms of abstraction, which I think is really great. And I noticed that in your piece, it's very striking to me because you do have two figures represented in your piece in regards to shadow and light. And I was just really curious if you could elaborate on who is photographed and maybe how it connects to this concept you were just talking about.
So again, with unprotected Black female flesh as the center of my thoughts, at least in this moment in my life and in my artistry, there are other socio-political offshoots to that reality. Wrote down some notes for myself. Can you repeat the question just so I don't digress?
Oh yeah, no worries. So yeah, I was just curious about the photograph of the two people you have in that one piece you titled "In Regards to Shadow and Light," and sort of if I'm just curious about how that is placed within all of these abstracted forms, and if there is a connection to the people in the image to the concept of unprotected Black female flesh, if that makes sense.
That makes. Thank you for reiterating.
Of course.
Yes. So all three pieces are an offshoot of that conversation, right? So in a very specific, centralized way, unprotected Black female flesh is particular to a certain subset of a reality. And these other conversations surrounding Black bodies and so on and so forth are like related with all kinds of fancy like word maps and all that. So for this piece, in regards to shadow and light, I was thinking about the Black body as threat. For all three pieces, they're all separate conversations surrounding Black geography. Or on my little notes, I'm just looking, making sure I stay on track.
No worries.
So I shot this original piece, which was not an abstracted print in its first form, what feels like a lifetime ago. I'm deciding if something is actually important or not. You know what? I'm just gonna, yeah. So in the image is a Black father and his son.
Mm-hmm.
And I again forgot your question. Sorry, that happens sometimes. Like
yeah, no worries. No need to apologize at all.
After, I know you were relating it back to Unprotected Black Female Flesh, but there was a second piece to your question.
Yeah, I guess just sort of, I guess why did you decide to keep that photograph intact in the center of that work? You know, the rest of the pieces are sort of fragmented and torn and live in abstraction. And I think that's really interesting that you kept it as a focal point for that piece. And I really love that, like all three of the works. And yeah, I think it's really great that visually you broke it up in that way.
So for in regards to Shadow and Light, I chose to really kind of, in my opinion, obviously centralize the Black man and the Black boy on purpose. Like I was still very much thinking in an abstract way, you know, conceptual abstraction, but I wanted for this piece specifically, since that's what we're talking about, I wanted these two people to be in the center, the upper center, and I wanted it to be obvious that they were walking on a path together in the center of the piece, surrounded by some type of chaos. My language, just lost my language. Descriptive word, it went away. It'll come back. But does that make sense? Did that I hope that had some clarity to it.
No, absolutely. Thank you for answering that. That really clarified a lot for me. That's really compelling. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my next question is about your big bodies piece. And I understand that it started as an installation you created at your residency in New York back in 2019. And you mentioned that you collaborated with musician Dr. Ian Saunders. And I was just wondering how this collaboration came to be and what the process was like for both of you.
Yeah, so I got into, right after graduate school, I got into the visual arts residency in Chicago, New York. And Ian, he's a musician, a very, very successful, talented bassist, very good friend of mine. Something that I really appreciated about being a resident was there was a variety of artists. You know, I was lucky enough to meet amazing theater folks, amazing musicians. Within that time, Ian and I happened to build a friendship. I've always had a huge draw to sounds, whether it be orchestra music or literally the sound that the paper makes when I'm working in my studio. And I just remember one night we were at the local bar in Chicago, I forgot the name of it. And we were just talking, and I was like, you know what, I would love to collaborate with you. And I was already working on the installation. And he was open and exciting and willing to kind of see what would come of it with the visual artist and the musician, and kind of what narrative we could create with these two art forms. So yeah. And, I mean, I look forward to continuing to utilize uh, those two modes. I think that, photography talks is very much the center of mine, photography, working with paper. But I think that orchestra music, string music also talks as well. So they're both amazing ways to really create narrative. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I was really intrigued with how tactile your pieces look alone with like the texture of the paper. And, just knowing more about the process of how multisensory the experience was really adds a lot more depth to the work. And I think that's really powerful. And is a form of healing, is collaborating with others and working with other
Mhm.
people that are maybe going through what you're going through or into you are and making in a similar vein.
The audio like gets a little bit. Can you
Oh,
repeat?
oh yeah, of course, yeah. And I think it's just really refreshing to just work with people who understand your work and maybe are working in a similar vein, and just sort of come in without judgment and just I don't know. It just watching the video online, it really made me notice that you both were so open to trying something different, and how you both were kind of feeding off of each other. It was really great.
And it was hot that day.
Oh yeah.
Probably, but out of all the days, that was a very hot New York day. Mind you, I was just carrying paper. A bass is not light, and
Yeah.
playing an instrument is not this lackadaisical thing. My homie Ian was sweat. Art was made, and we had to stop because we were just like, I know that he was like, okay, it's like a thousand degrees in New York, but it's still an experience that I hold very close to my heart. So, and I'm thankful for his friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you both carried it so gracefully. I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess the next question was about Dr. Saunders. Yeah, I mean, I assume you guys still keep in touch because you're friends, and I was wondering if you planned on working collaboratively again. And I know because of COVID, that's physically made it really challenging, maybe almost impossible. But yeah, I was wondering if there's anything you guys have been conversation about.
I mean, we're both open to the possibility. I mean, yes, there's absolutely the virus. And also I'm in California, Northern California. He's on the East Coast.
Hmm.
Won't give all of his, whatever, but he's way over there. And he's very, very busy. I definitely have a schedule of my own. But I mean, I'm absolutely open to it. I know he is too. It's just a matter of like, you know,
Hmm.
us being in the same time zone. I recently stepped into my musicianship, which has been great, and he's been so encouraging and helpful. So I have good faith that it's a very great possibility that we'll be collaborating again, and you know maybe with music and not visual art, but we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and something that I always kind of bring up in these artist talks, because it's kind of the foundation for what VGO was built upon. Just speaking of COVID, it's not a fun question, but it's definitely, I think, important if you're comfortable sharing. Like, how has the pandemic sort of affected your art making process? Or even maybe if you were making this body of work during the time of the pandemic, how has that kind of changed your perception or your process in interacting with your work?
Um, so the pandemic has absolutely
Hmm.
obstructed my life, right? Like there's no way around that. But I've found an even larger challenge within experiencing the pandemic. You know, I have my own place in my hometown. And my hometown is where none of my community is.
Mm.
And that has really shifted my reality. You know what I mean? Kind of like the offshoot. It's like, this is a pandemic and other possible like structures that make it much, much harder. You know, I think that it's just all of these things that just kind of like blown up in all of our faces in a variety of ways. You know, I live in a smaller town, which definitely does make me feel a little bit safer. You know, maybe that's not true, but, you know, definitely following all the guidelines and so on and so forth. But I just think it's just been harder because there have been more things to think about, you know, kind of finding solutions for the loneliness, because loneliness is distracting and it causes, you know, feelings of depression, and then you have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to make because you're sad. You don't have the community to be in conversation with. So I think for me, it's just kind of in terms of shifting my practice and how I make and what I make. The pandemic has shifted my reality because I'm still a person living with multiple sclerosis. And despite all of this really intense stress and priorities and work, I still have to maintain my health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's been hard. It's been hard. I hope that answered your question.
No, I think so. And yeah, something that I found personally difficult too was just, again, like finding the motivation, like you're mentioning, you know, loneliness is distracting. And just, yeah, I mean, it's hard sometimes to want to start a new project if you're feeling overwhelmed with the state of the world and just fearing going outside, you know. While I am vaccinated, you know, my sister's immune compromised, and I always think about folks who are also struggling with that. And I don't know, I just don't want to be the main cause of someone else's suffering, and also just trying to maintain my own mental health for sure. So it's a balance to, you know, it's hard to find that balance. And yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I think it's important to reflect upon it for sure.
I agree. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So those were all the questions I had prepared for today. These go by really fast. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you again for being here with me today. This was great, and I'm excited to post this later tonight.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate it.